The pregnancy test stared back at me from the bathroom trash can like a neon sign in the dark. 2 pink lines. Positive. My wife Jenna had been working late again, stumbling through our front door at 2 a.m. with that guilty smile she thought I couldn't read. Here's the thing about being married for 12 years. You learn to notice the small details. The way she suddenly started buying expensive lingerie she never wore around me. How her phone became surgically attached to her hand. The mysterious client meetings that ran past midnight. But this pregnancy test? This was the smoking gun I'd been waiting for. I'm Evan Brooks, 42 years old, owner of Brooks Home Renovation. I fix broken things for a living. Cabinets, plumbing, marriages that can't be salvaged. I had a vasectomy 3 years ago after our daughter Liv turned 15 and made it clear she was embarrassed by the thought of baby siblings. So either this test belonged to our teenage daughter, or my wife was carrying someone else's child. "Morning, honey," Jenna chirped as she waltzed into the kitchen, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite her alleged exhaustion from working late. She wore a new dress I'd never seen before, red, expensive, the kind that screamed, "Look at me." "Sleep well?" I asked, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the one that read, "World's Okayest Husband." How prophetic. She hesitated for just a moment. Like a rock. You know how those marketing presentations drain me. I nodded, watching her face. Jenna worked at Preston & Associates, a boutique marketing firm downtown. Her boss, Richard Preston, was married to Lucy Langley, whose husband Chris owned half the car dealerships in Ashwood. Small-town connections, everyone knew everyone, and everyone's business eventually became public knowledge. "Jenna," I said, setting down my mug with deliberate care. "We need to talk." Her hand froze halfway to her coffee cup. "About what?" I pulled the pregnancy test from my pocket and placed it on the granite countertop between us. The plastic stick looked impossibly small, yet enormous at the same time. The color drained from her face. "Evan, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'm genuinely curious how you're going to explain being pregnant when your husband had a vasectomy 3 years ago." My voice remained steady, conversational. "Unless you're claiming this is some kind of medical miracle." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Jenna's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She reached for the test, but I was quicker, sliding it back toward me. "Who is he?" I asked. "You're being ridiculous. That's not even mine. Maybe Liv." "Don't." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Don't you dare drag our daughter into your lies. I already checked with her." She laughed and asked if I'd lost my mind. The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of the wall clock and the distant hum of the refrigerator. Jenna stared at the test, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the counter. "It's Chris," she whispered finally. "Chris Langley." Of course it was Chris Langley. I'd known Chris since high school. Star quarterback, prom king, the guy who peaked at 18 but somehow managed to coast on charm and family money into middle age. He'd married Lucy Preston right after college, inherited his father's car dealership empire, and spent the next 20 years playing the role of Ashwood's golden boy. He was also Jenna's first boyfriend, back when they were 17 and thought they'd conquered the world. "How long?" I asked. "Evan, please. How long, Jenna?" She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking smaller in her expensive red dress. 6 months? Maybe 7. 7 months. While I was working 60-hour weeks to keep our renovation business afloat, while I was coaching Liv's soccer team, while I was being the dutiful husband who never questioned why his wife suddenly needed so much alone time. "Are you planning to leave me for him?" She looked up, and for a moment I saw something that might have been genuine emotion cross her face. Regret? Sadness? Or just frustration at getting caught? "I don't know," she said. "I don't know anything anymore." I picked up the pregnancy test and walked to the trash can, dropping it in with a soft thud. "Well, you'd better figure it out, because I'm done pretending everything's fine." "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned back to face her, and I could see my reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator behind her, a middle-aged man in work clothes, graying at the temples, tired eyes that had seen too much. But not defeated, not yet. It means the rules just changed, Jenna? You wanted to play games? Congratulations. You just met your opponent." Tom Riley had been my best friend since we were 8 years old, building tree forts and getting into trouble with equal enthusiasm. Now he managed the Anchor, Ashwood's favorite blue-collar bar, and served as the town's unofficial information broker. If you wanted to know who was sleeping with whom, who was behind on their mortgage, or which city council member was skimming from the park's budget, Tom was your man. So, let me get this straight, Tom said, wiping down a beer glass with practiced efficiency. Your wife is pregnant with Chris Langley's kid, and you want my advice on what to do about it. The Anchor was mostly empty at 3 in the afternoon, just me, Tom, and old Pete Morrison nursing his daily whiskey in the corner booth. The perfect setting for conspiracy. I want your advice on how to handle this without ending up in handcuffs, I clarified. Tom set down the glass and leaned against the bar. He was built like a linebacker, with hands that could crush beer cans or fix a carburetor with equal skill. You know what your problem is, Evan. You're too nice. Always have been. Being nice is a problem? When your wife's screwing the town prince? Yeah, it's a problem. Tom grabbed 2 bottles of beer from the cooler and slid one across to me. Chris Langley's been coasting on his reputation since high school. Golden boy, pillar of the community, generous donor to local charities. But you know what he really is? Tell me. He's a spoiled brat who never learned consequences. His daddy bought him out of every scrape. His wife covers for his wandering eye, and the whole town treats him like royalty because he throws money around. Tom took a long pull from his beer. Maybe it's time someone taught him what consequences look like. I thought about that morning's conversation with Jenna. The way she'd looked genuinely surprised that I wasn't just going to roll over and accept her betrayal. Like she'd expected me to be grateful she'd finally told the truth. What do you know about his marriage to Lucy? Tom's grin was predatory. Now you're asking the right questions. Lucy Langley née Preston comes from old money. Her family founded Preston and Associates back in the 70s. She's the one with the real connections in this town, not Chris. He married up, and everyone knows it. Including Lucy? Lucy's not stupid. She knows exactly what kind of man she married. But she's also not the type to make waves publicly. Bad for business, bad for the family reputation. Tom leaned closer, lowering his voice. But I'll bet you anything she'd be very interested to know about Chris's latest extracurricular activities. I considered this. Lucy Preston Langley was Ashwood royalty. Old family, older money, the kind of woman who could destroy reputations with a carefully placed word at the country club. If she decided Chris had become a liability... There's something else, Tom continued. Monica Chen from Jenna's office comes in here sometimes with her girlfriends. Last week she was pretty intoxicated and started talking about how her friend Jenna was finally living her best life and deserved to be happy after settling for so long. Monica Chen? Jenna's best friend and co-worker. I'd always thought she was harmless, a gossipy marketing executive who treated other people's drama like entertainment. But if she was actively encouraging Jenna's affair... You think Monica knows about the pregnancy? I think Monica knows everything. She's Jenna's confidant, her cheerleader, probably her alibi. Tom finished his beer and started wiping down the bar again. Question is, what are you going to do with all this information? I stared at my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. The man looking back at me was tired, hurt, angry, but not broken. Not yet. I'm going to remind everyone in this town that the nice guy doesn't always finish last, I said. Sometimes he just takes longer to get started. Tom's laugh echoed through the empty bar. Now you're talking. What do you need from me? Information. Jenna and Chris think they're being clever, sneaking around, keeping their secret. But in a town this size, there are no real secrets. Just information that hasn't been properly distributed yet. I can work with that. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Lucy Langley's office at Preston and Associates. What are you doing? Tom asked. Making an appointment for a consultation. My business could use some professional marketing advice. I hit the call button and waited for someone to answer. Preston and Associates, this is Monica speaking. Perfect. Jenna's best friend answering Lucy's phones. The irony was almost too beautiful. Hi, Monica. This is Evan Brooks from Brooks Home Renovation. I'd like to schedule a consultation with Mrs. Langley about a marketing campaign for my business. Oh, hi, Evan. I'll check Lucy's calendar. How does Thursday at 2 o'clock sound? Perfect. And Monica, please don't mention this to Jenna. I want to surprise her. Monica's laugh was bright and completely unsuspicious. Of course. She'll be so excited that you're finally taking her advice about marketing. I ended the call and looked at Tom, who was grinning like a shark. Phase 1 complete, I said. Time to start distributing some information. Lucy Langley's office was exactly what I'd expected. Tasteful, expensive, designed to impress clients while maintaining an air of understated elegance. She sat behind a mahogany desk that probably cost more than my truck, wearing a cream-colored suit that screamed money and authority. Mr. Brooks, thank you for coming in. I understand you're interested in developing a marketing strategy for your renovation business. Lucy was an attractive woman in her early 40s, with auburn hair pulled back in a professional chignon and intelligent green eyes that missed nothing. She had the kind of poise that came from growing up with money and the confidence that came from never having to question her place in the world. That's right. My business has been growing, and my wife keeps telling me I need to be more strategic about marketing. I settled into the leather chair across from her desk, noting the family photos positioned where clients could see them, Lucy and Chris at various charity events, vacation shots from Europe, the perfect power couple. Your wife has excellent instincts. Jenna's one of our most creative team members. Lucy opened a leather portfolio and pulled out a pen. Tell me about your current client base. For the next 20 minutes, we discussed target demographics, advertising budgets, and brand positioning. Lucy was professional, knowledgeable, and completely focused on business. She was also wearing her wedding ring, a massive diamond solitaire that caught the afternoon light streaming through her office windows. I think we can develop an excellent campaign for you, Lucy said finally. I'd like to have Jenna work on this project, actually. She has a real talent for understanding the home improvement market. That would be wonderful. Jenna's always been supportive of my business. I leaned forward slightly, adopting a more casual tone. Though I have to admit, she's been working such long hours lately, I barely see her. You must keep your team pretty busy. Something flickered across Lucy's face, so briefly I almost missed it. We do have demanding schedules, especially this time of year, but I try to make sure my employees maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's good to hear. Jenna's been coming home so late, I was starting to worry she was having an affair. I laughed as if the idea was ridiculous. But she always says she's been working on client presentations or meeting with potential accounts. Lucy's pen had stopped moving across her notepad. Client meetings can run late sometimes, especially when we're trying to close important deals. Of course, and I'm sure Chris Langley keeps you busy too. All those car dealerships must require a lot of marketing support. The pen slipped from Lucy's fingers and clattered onto the desk. She recovered quickly, but I'd seen the reaction. Actually, my husband handles his own marketing. We have a policy about mixing business with personal relationships. Smart policy, though I suppose it's hard to avoid in a town this size. Everyone knows everyone. I stood up and extended my hand. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Langley. I look forward to working with your team. Her handshake was firm, professional, but her eyes were troubled. We'll be in touch soon, Mr. Brooks. I left Preston and Associates and drove straight to Chris's main dealership lot. Langley Motors sat on 3 acres of prime real estate on the edge of town, gleaming rows of cars arranged like soldiers on parade. The showroom was all glass and chrome, designed to showcase the latest models and Chris's success. I found him in his office, feet up on his desk, talking loudly into his phone about some deal he was closing. He looked exactly like what he was. A middle-aged former athlete who'd gone soft around the edges but still carried himself like he owned the world. Evan Brooks. Chris jumped up and came around the desk with his hand extended and his salesman's smile at full wattage. What brings you to my humble establishment? Finally ready to trade up from that old truck? Just thought I'd stop by and say hello. Haven't seen you around much lately. I shook his hand, noting the firm grip and the expensive watch on his wrist. Been keeping busy, you know how it is. Business is booming, can't complain. Chris gestured toward the chairs in front of his desk. Have a seat. Can I get you some coffee? Water? I'm fine, thanks. Actually, I wanted to thank you. Chris's smile faltered slightly. Thank me? For what? For keeping my wife company during all those late nights at the office. She mentioned you've been helping her with some big project. The color drained from Chris's face so fast I thought he might pass out. He sat down heavily in his chair, his salesman composure cracking like ice on a warm day. I'm not sure what you mean, Evan. Oh, come on, Chris. We've known each other since high school. No need to be modest. I leaned back in my chair, completely relaxed. Jenna's been working so hard lately, staying out until all hours. It's nice to know she has such a dedicated colleague helping her out. Chris's phone buzzed on his desk. He glanced at it automatically, and I saw his face go white. The caller ID read Jenna. Aren't you going to answer that? I asked pleasantly. It can wait. Chris's voice was barely above a whisper. Actually, I should probably get going. Lots to do at home. I stood up and headed for the door, then turned back as if I just remembered something. Oh, and Chris, congratulations. Congratulations? On the baby. Jenna told me this morning. You must be thrilled. I left Chris Langley sitting in his office, staring at his ringing phone, looking like a man who just realized his perfect life was about to come crashing down around him. Phase 2 was complete. Time to see how long it took for the dominoes to start falling. The community center was packed for the annual Ashwood Children's Charity Auction, the kind of event where the town's elite gathered to write checks and feel good about themselves. I'd volunteered to handle the audio-visual setup, projector, microphone, the usual technical details that nobody else wanted to deal with. Perfect. Jenna stood near the registration table in a black cocktail dress, playing the role of devoted community volunteer. She'd been avoiding me for the past week, ever since Chris had apparently called her in a panic after my visit to the dealership. They thought they were being subtle, but desperation has a smell, and both of them reeked of it. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our annual charity auction," announced Mayor Patricia Wells from the podium. "Before we begin the bidding, we have a special presentation about the children's programs your donations support." I clicked the remote control, and the first slide appeared on the large screen behind the podium, a group photo of smiling kids at the community center's summer camp. Perfectly innocent. The second slide showed the new playground equipment purchased with last year's donations, also innocent. The third slide was a screenshot of a text message conversation. "Chris, can't wait to see you tonight. Tell Evan you're working late again. Jenna, he's so clueless. Sometimes I think he actually believes I'm at the office until midnight. Chris, what happens when he finds out about the baby? Jenna, he won't. We're too careful." The room went completely silent. I could hear my own heartbeat in the sudden quiet. The fourth slide was another text exchange. "Chris, Lucy's getting suspicious. She asked about my schedule last week. Jenna, maybe we should cool things down for a while. Chris, are you crazy? I'm not giving you up. We'll figure something out." Mayor Wells was frantically gesturing at me to change the slide, but I was having technical difficulties with the remote. Such a shame. The fifth slide was the pregnancy test photo I'd taken that first morning with a caption, "Congratulations, it's a scandal." The crowd erupted. Whispers became gasps, became outright conversations as people turned to stare at Jenna, who stood frozen by the registration table like a deer in headlights. "I'm so sorry, folks," I announced into the microphone, taking it from the mayor's shocked hands. "Looks like we have some technical issues with the presentation. Must have gotten the wrong files mixed in somehow. You know how technology can be." Chris Langley was pushing through the crowd toward the exit, his face purple with rage and embarrassment. Lucy sat at table 3, staring at the screen with an expression I couldn't quite read. Monica Chen was nowhere to be seen. She'd apparently decided this was an excellent time to visit the ladies' room. "Evan, what have you done?" Jenna appeared at my elbow, her voice shaking with fury. "Me? I didn't do anything. I'm just the guy running the projector." I smiled at her, the same pleasant smile I'd given Chris at the dealership. "Although I have to say, you and Chris really should be more careful about your text messages. You never know who might see them." "You went through my phone?" "Your old phone, the one you forgot to wipe when you upgraded last month. It was in the junk drawer, still synced to your cloud account. Amazing how technology works these days." Jenna looked around the room at the staring faces, the whispered conversations, the cell phones already coming out to capture the drama. Her perfect reputation, carefully constructed over years of charity work and community involvement, was crumbling in real time. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "It's not." Mrs. Dorothy Henley, president of the Ashwood Garden Club and unofficial keeper of the town's moral standards, approached our little group with the determined stride of a woman on a mission. "Jenna Brooks, I think you have some explaining to do. Mrs. Henley, this is all a misunderstanding. Is it? Because those text messages seemed pretty clear to me." Mrs. Henley's voice carried across the room, ensuring everyone could hear. "And here, I thought you were such a devoted wife and mother." The crowd was closing in now, drawn by the promise of real drama. I stepped back and let them have their moment, watching as Jenna's carefully constructed world collapsed around her. My phone buzzed with a text message from Tom at the anchor. "Watching the live stream on Facebook. You magnificent bastard. Drinks are on me tonight." Live stream. Of course someone was broadcasting this. By tomorrow morning, everyone in Ashwood would know exactly what Jenna Brooks and Chris Langley had been doing during those late-night business meetings. I packed up the projector equipment and headed for the exit, leaving Jenna to face the music alone. She'd made her choice 7 months ago when she decided to betray our marriage. Now she could live with the consequences. Outside in the parking lot, I found Lucy Langley leaning against her Mercedes, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. "Mrs. Langley, are you all right?" She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I knew, you know, about the affairs. Chris thinks he's subtle, but he's not." She took a long drag from her cigarette. "I just never thought he'd be stupid enough to get someone pregnant." "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Lucy laughed, but there was no humor in it. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you orchestrated this whole thing pretty carefully. I didn't deny it. There was no point. What happens now? I asked. Now? Now Chris learns what it's like to lose everything he thinks he's entitled to. Lucy dropped her cigarette and crushed it under her heel. The dealerships are in my family's name, Mr. Brooks. The house, the bank accounts, the country club membership, all mine. Chris forgot that when you marry up, you're always just one mistake away from falling back down. She got into her car and drove away, leaving me alone in the parking lot with the sound of raised voices drifting from the community center. My phone rang. Jenna's number. I let it go to voicemail, then I drove home to wait for the final act to begin.